It's rib season and we're making smoked ribs, the real thing. Hey, it's always rib season. Welcome to Sweet Spot, where I share some of my favorite recipes, offer some tips and tricks while trying to have a little bit of fun. The rub we mix up in a lot of these ribs is one of the keys to a success. I'm kind of proud of myself because I have just the right combination of spices. Brown sugar for sweetness. A little bit of heat. Plenty of flavor. And salt. Use a fork, or if you have chunks of brown sugar, just use your fingers. Fingers are way easier. My preferred choice of ribs for this recipe, and pork ribs in general, are using St. Louis cut ribs. They're a longer bone, they're meatier, I think, and more flavorful, more tender. Oh my gosh. The baby back ribs that restaurants frequently serve, they're cute and they have a nice name, but the St. Louis cut ribs, they're my choice. There's not a lot of prep you need to do this. If you see a ton of fat on it, you can cut that off. Otherwise, the only other thing you need to do is remove the thin membrane or silverskin that's on the bone side of the ribs, and that's pretty easy to do. Though I think it is the hardest part of making ribs. I find that using the handle of a spoon, not pointy at all, is the easiest way to do this. You simply want to slide the handle or some other non-sharp object between the membrane and the bone. Then with a paper towel, grab a hold of that membrane, and if you're lucky, you get it off in one piece, and simply pull this off. And once the membrane's off, take a look at the ribs for any obvious signs of a big chunk of fat. If you see a large chunk of fat, just slice that off. Yuck. Once the membrane's removed and any excess fat is cut off, you want to apply the rub. You need about a tablespoon, 2 or even 3, per side of ribs. The amount of rub that we made is way too much for 1 rack of ribs, so save the rest for another day, or make 2 racks. Like I said, a little generous application, and you actually need to rub this in, hence the name, rib rub. You want to work it in, covering all the surfaces, including the edges. Flip it, and apply the other side. Again, 2-3 tablespoons. Once the rub is rubbed in, these are looking good, we want to start the grill. There is no need, by the way, to let the rub sit in overnight. Really, no need. I'm lucky enough to have a Green Mountain pellet grill. These are so easy to use. Like any pellet grill, we want to top off the hopper with the pellets. We start the grill, at least the Green Mountain grill, by powering on and pressing the up arrow. The grill goes through 4 stages to get itself ready. It feeds the pellets automatically, it ignites them, and then they smoke like the dickens for 1 or 2 minutes. Then at around 130 degrees, the smoke pretty much disappears. And then you set the temperature. For these ribs, we're using 225. That's a great smoking temperature. It won't char the ribs, it won't dry them out. It just allows for a nice, slow smoke. It's going to maintain 225 or so, 3 hours. The ribs have smoked for 3 hours. They're off the grill. The bones have started to poke through. Next, we want to wrap them in tin foil after smearing them with honey and brown sugar. Can't go wrong with that. Drizzle some honey. No specific amount, tablespoon, maybe 2. Same with the brown sugar. Just sprinkle that on. Then again, with the back of a spoon, we just spread this around, covering the surface as well as you can. No need for perfection here. Flip the ribs and repeat. To lessen the likelihood of a bone poking through the aluminum foil, I like to flip it so the meat side is down. And as the liquids are accumulating, they'll kind of base the meat part rather than the bone half. Seal this up pretty tightly. And this can go back onto the smoker for 2 hours at 225, or I find it easier just to use an oven at 225. The ribs won't be missing out on any smoky flavor since they're wrapped in tin foil. No more smoking. Into the oven, 2 hours. The ribs are finished cooking. They smell good. Careful, this is very hot. There's a lot of steam in here. I speak from experience. This will burn you. At this point, we want to very carefully drain off the cooking liquid because the ribs have given off quite a bit of liquid. And we simply carefully lift this up and pour the liquid off. You want to get every last bit. This liquid is what I use as a base for my glaze. If you don't want to use a glaze and you just want to use barbecue sauce, homemade or store-bought, you can discard this liquid, but it's pretty hot right now and fatty. Skim the fat from this liquid. If you have a fat skimmer, use that, or a spoon. There shouldn't be that much fat, but you definitely want to remove it. Now this leftover cooking juice, it's not leftover. This is so flavorful. It's got all the pork flavor. We love the pork flavor. You may not think you do, but you actually do. It's got honey, it's got the brown sugar, it's got all the spices in it. This is delicious, but it's a little bit on the thin side. So what I like to do is I add a little bit of barbecue sauce. If you make your own barbecue sauce, that is fine. Add a little bit. If you don't, I recommend Sweet Baby Ray's. That's my favorite, but any brand will do, any brand. Basically, for the amount of liquid you have, you add about 1/3 more of the barbecue sauce. Just eyeball it, just eyeball it. Stir that around, throw that on the burner until it's reduced a bit. You'll end up with a nice glaze. It won't be as thick as barbecue sauce. You don't want it to be as thick as barbecue sauce. Just reduce it a little bit. Then we want to glaze these beautiful ribs. Careful, this is still hot. I like to finish these in a broiler. I want to, ow, that's hot. I want to put these, a little bit of glaze. I like to use a spoon. You can use a pastry brush or whatever you'd like, but the glaze is liquidy, and I like to use a spoon. Then we want to broil these a minute or two, just so they're starting to bubble on the surface. Then we want to flip them, put on more glaze, and ready to serve. Oh, these are beautiful. These ribs need to cool a little bit. I'm going to slice it. I'm going to do the taste test. These smell amazing. Taste test time, my absolute favorite part. These ribs, though they take a while to cook, it's pretty easy. It's a pretty easy recipe. Rib rub, just a bunch of stuff mixed together, spread on, let the smoker do its work, 3 hours gone, a little bit of honey, a little bit of brown sugar, back into the oven. I use the oven rather than putting it back on the smoker. Unwrap it 2 hours later and make the glaze. Takes about 10 seconds, okay, 2 minutes. And we have these ribs. I can see cutting these, they have a gorgeous bark on them where the smoker did its magic, and these smell so good. Oh my gosh, look at this. If you're into smoke rings, that's where there's a little bit of pink inside the meat. It's perfectly cooked. This is a gorgeous smoke ring, look at that. I don't know why I took like the skinniest one. Let me bite into this. My mouth is salivating right now. Actually is. And they smell good. And they're gorgeous. Oh my, did I mention that? Tender. Smoky, of course. Oh my gosh. They are so flavorful. This rub that I've been using for the last couple months, it's perfect. It's pretty much perfect. And the glaze, a little bit crystallized on the outside here. If I could reach around and pat myself on the back, I would. These are unbeatable. Meaty, delicious. These are almost fall off the bone perfect. I do not like when the meat just falls off the bone and the bones slip out. I like to be able to bite into it just a little bit before the bone and the meat separate. Did I mention how good these ribs are? And I'm glad there's a taste test because that is my favorite part. Little bit of heat, not spicy hot, little bit of heat, some sweetness, lots of flavor, and the smoke. Oh, and the tenderness. This recipe is pretty darn perfect. And if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. Let me know how much you like this video. Leave a comment, let me know how yours turned out. And if you're not a subscriber, now is the perfect time to subscribe. Hit the link down below and hit the bell icon. The bell icon will let you be notified each time I release a new video. Hey, if you do not have a smoker, try these sous vide ribs. Oh my gosh, sous vide ribs, almost as good, tender, almost as good. Or check out this video. Until next time, this is it for Sweet Spot.